live and online. It's Sleepless with Steve and the Movie Book Club with your host, Steve Pulaski.
Back and better than ever, Sleepless with Steve. Going to try to make it through this episode without any tornadic activity. I worked around a guy who loved weather, who is now a meteorologist in the Quad Cities, and that's where I learned the term tornadic activity. So there you go. Sleepless with Steve, live and in living color. Lots of color on Joe's screen right now. On YouTube, we come to you live every Wednesday evening, coast to coast, 6:30 Central Time. Going to try to make it through this review unscathed. We were set to review Joyride last week, and we got probably about a fourth of our way into it, talking about Joyride. And then, Joe, I'll leave you to explain what happened because it affected you. We just got rain. You guys got some funnel clouds. It was no lie. I joke. It was a scary situation.
It was. So for those of you that tuned into the show or watched the replay, you would hear it. Unfortunately, it didn't come through on my mic to Steve because it probably just didn't transfer the sound. But you heard my alarm go off on my phone here that you can't see because of the green screen background. We had a tornado touchdown, literally 10 miles away from us in South Elgin, which is where I used to live. So actually, if I was still living there while we were doing that show, you would have seen a tornado just rip through the background of my camera. But yeah, as you can tell, as a joke, I decided to show I'm like Dorothy and I ended up in Oz because of the tornado. But yeah, and it wasn't even just that day. 2 days later, another tornado touchdown. This time closer to where I live, 5 miles away. So it was Jesus Christ, what is with these tornadoes coming in and out? It affected the show, and if you were still listening in, you heard Steve's interview with one of the actresses,
Sherry Cola.
Sherry Cola, thank you. The actress Sherry Cola from Joyride. He got to interview her on his radio show that he does as a professional career. And then you heard me just show up at the very end of the hour, just hey, don't worry, we'll review Bird Box next week. Yeah, see you later. And if you're looking at the scroll right now, you can clearly see Bird Box is not on today's lineup.
Yeah, for sure. Because how it went then, in the aftermath of this whole thing, because I'm not going to lie, after about 20 minutes of sporadic updates from you, I was number one, are you good? Mm-hmm. And number two, it's let's not continue the show because if we would, it would bleed in past 8 o'clock and everything. Because I know we both have a lot to say about Joyride. Mm-hmm. And then I kid you not, I messaged you. I believe it was Friday night because I was at concerts all weekend. I messaged you on Friday night when Catherine and I were watching Bird Box Barcelona. It was about an hour into it. And I messaged you and I was like, let's just do Joyride this week because Bird Box Barcelona sucks. And now here's the thing. If I would have been vitriolic in the way it sucks and I would have been angry and had as I've had on this show many times, table pounding points as to why this movie was bad in an infuriating way, I would have kept Bird Box Barcelona on the schedule because it would have been entertaining. But I'm this movie, I think I told Catherine had some great commentary during it, but I leaned over to Catherine and I was while we were watching it, I was this movie doesn't even care that it sucks. And that's a special thing. When this movie doesn't even care that it sucks. This thing looks like one of those direct-to-DVD movies back in 2010. That's what it was. So it's a bad movie. It's gonna probably make my worst list of the year, but it's not a noteworthy bad movie.
Yeah.
So I was let's talk Joyride number one, and then let's try to make sense, which is gonna be very difficult without Dom. Let's try to make sense and distill down the SAG-AFTRA strike.
If you guys want to know where Dom's at, because SAG-AFTRA is now happening, he's actually on the picket lines protesting this show. I crossed the picket line because I'm a no good son of a bitch, but
you're a scab. You're a scab. That's what they call you. That was a good one.
Yeah. I did. The funny thing is I was even texting Steve about this. I had no idea what the Bird Box sequel was about. I just saw like, hey, Netflix is making a Bird Box sequel. I thought it was a sequel to the Sandra Bullock movie, and Sandra Bullock was in it. So when Steve told me like Sandra Bullock's is not, by the way, I'm not even a fan of that first movie. When Steve told me like Sandra Bullock's not even in it and it has nothing to do with that first movie, I said, dude, I would fucking probably hate this movie because I did not like that first one that much.
And see, that's where you and I differ. I honestly think Bird Box is one of the best Netflix original movies. I think it's a great film. I think probably the thing that hurt it, and I guess hurt its reception because it's still one of the most watched movies on Netflix of all time.
Oh, no doubt.
However that's quantified.
Yeah.
But it's still to this day though, like I feel like it was hurt in the regard that A Quiet Place came out about 8 months before it.
Yeah.
And
sure.
that was the movie where you couldn't make a sound. This was the movie where you couldn't like open your eyes. Like I feel like that already was memeable material and was a little bit like, oh, it's copying A Quiet Place, even though they Bird Box, I believe,
it's based on a book.
It's based on a book, yeah. Okay, yeah. So I did get validation on that. Suzanne Bier, was the writer of that. So it was like unfortunate timing for that thing, but at the same time, though, I thought it was really well done, and this movie clearly needs like an anchor. And I mentioned in my review too, StevePulaski.com. This last thing I'll say about Bird Box Barcelona. This is like the only noteworthy thing I had to say about it. That was humorous too. Is that I love the fact that the movie itself, like Bird Box, one of the most successful Netflix movies yet, original movies. I love how the sequel was A, released on the platform with no marketing, and B, sounds like one of their like global spin-off reality shows.
That's actually true.
Like Love Island, Denmark. You know what I mean? Like Bird Box, Barcelona. And you know what? The thing, a lot of critics were like, this is the spin-off of Bird Box. No, it's not. It's the fucking direct sequel.
Oh, it is.
This is the plan for these movies, is to make them like local language set. Like we could get like a Bird Box Shanghai, a Bird Box Italy. Like that's the direction they want to take this franchise, is on a global scale.
I'll watch Bird Box Italy only because I want to see how Italians would do. Because we're fucked when it comes to A Quiet Place. You can't shut us up. But Bird Box, we actually might thrive.
Polacks are too. Polacks are too. Believe you me, we'd be the first ones dead in A Quiet Place. We'd be the first ones dead. Man, but they won't do. The cowards won't do Bird Box Poland now. They won't do that. That's not noteworthy.
Maybe they'll do Bird Box European Vacation. I don't fucking know. Like,
yeah, no shit. Bird Box Vegas Vacation. It's terrible though. But like I said, I just love the fact that it sounds like a reality show that Netflix would put out. But we're going to talk about the SAG-AFTRA strike that is currently happening. We're going to get to that later in the show. Might truncate our review of Joyride just a little bit in order to make sure we talk about it. Special guest appearance from Ebert over here. And we got to get back to our Joyride review, though. And what sucks is that, like, and I could go on right now, that, like, this movie came out 2 weeks ago. Joyride came out 2 weeks ago. And never mind the fact that everybody on Twitter bitches about the fact that there's no like meaningful minority representation in movies, but when there's minority representation in movies, nobody shows up to the theater. But that's neither here nor there. You know, I got disliked on that YouTube video about Booksmart, and I'm still right 4 years later too. So, like Good Will Hunting, how do you like them apples? But anyway, moreover, Joyride though, like, I know it's probably exiting theaters this week, and it's probably going to get a theater cut this week that is very substantial. It's probably looking at 1,000 theater cut this week, especially given Barbie, especially with Oppenheimer. It's gonna get axed. This thing is currently sitting at right now about $13 million domestically, which is a damn shame because this thing is a really funny movie. The only thing I hope now, it's obviously going to go to video on demand. It's going to go to video on demand probably in the next couple of weeks. I would think I think before the month's up. I think it's probably going to be on video on demand. The only thing I can hope is that this thing goes to Hulu and people watch it, or goes to Netflix and people watch it, because this is the funniest movie of the year. It is hysterically funny. At a time when we do not get raunchy R-rated comedies that have a real edge to them and have a feeling like there's something different going on. And I know that it's a road movie in a way. It's a buddy movie. It's a quartet of these 4 women that are on a trip to Beijing because the one woman, Audrey, played by
Ashley Park.
Excuse me. Played by Ashley Park. She is on a business trip to Beijing. She links up with her friends, played by Sherry Cola, Stephanie Shu, and Sabrina Wu. And they link up and they're going through Beijing. And it's Sherry Cola's character, Lolo, who convinces Audrey to try and find her birth mother in Beijing. And the movie is basically en route. First, it's trying to close the business deal. Then it's trying to find her birth mother. And I understand the framework of this movie. Like it's the same thing with Booksmart. Like, people are going to say, like, it's the female bride, or it's the female Superbad. People with Queen and Slim, far less seen movie, wrote it off as the Black Bonnie and Clyde. This is going to be written off or kind of generalized as the Asian Bridesmaids.
Yeah.
But I think the characters here are developed better than in Bridesmaids. I think the character development, the individualism in this movie is so strong, and I think there's a ton to love about this thing. And really, I'll be honest, how friggin' filthy it is. Like, this thing is just so filthy in so many different ways. Transgressive, and it just kind of drops these characters in these like really lewd, unsavory settings, and is like, go. And I love that about it. That's sort of my general thoughts, kind of vomiting what I said last week before we had to cut the show and kind of building on it. I'm interested to hear what you have to say, Joe.
Let me just make sure there's not another cloud in sight real quick so I can actually get through my opening thoughts. I'll try to make it quick because I do want to get to the SAG-AFTRA stuff as well. And it sucks to add on to what you were saying, that it's a shame that this movie didn't really make that much money. It's also a shame that it'll be leaving theaters soon. And I think you can even watch it, if I'm not mistaken. Hold on. I believe you can actually watch this movie at home right now if you wanted to. I think you can rent it from... you can rent it from YouTube right now for $3.99. So if you want to save some money for you and your friends to have like a nice night in real quick and just watch a comedy, along with Steve, I also recommend this movie. For me though, in terms, is it the funniest comedy of this year? I gotta think about it. I saw 3 comedies back to back. I saw The Blackening, No Hard Feelings, and this. I'm a little bit in favor of No Hard Feelings. I really like what that movie did. But Joyride would probably be close second, if not maybe take the spot as well. Because the longer I thought about this movie while I was in my basement, hoping that a tornado wouldn't come and kill me, the more I was realizing, like, this movie really did a lot of good than like I initially was going to actually come on the show and say. Originally, like, I was going to come in and be like, yeah, like, I thought it was good, but, like, I don't know if it's really the best comedy this year. It's really, I really thought about, like, all the characters, and maybe was listening to the interview on loop with Sherry Cola that helped hammer this in as well. These characters actually were a lot of fun to hang out with, and I actually really liked what they did with, especially Audrey and Lolo. They are the heart of this film. Believe it, you wouldn't believe this, man. It's not a tornado, but a fucking telemarketer is trying to call me right now.
Oh my God, leave you alone.
Let me get to my opening statement, damn it. Audrey and Lolo's relationship throughout the movie, it was probably the best part of the film. As like dirty, because I've seen people complain that this movie is just Lolo's character constantly just going, oh, fuck this, ooh, that's gross, let me shove this up my you-know-what, and all this stuff. As much as it is that, and it does have that gross out humor, as Steve said, we haven't had it in so long at theaters that, like, it's not as annoying as it used to be. It's actually kind of like, oh, this is a bit refreshing to see on a big screen again. People doing coke and having tons of sex. when it actually gets to like the second half of this movie where shit gets really serious and actually a little bit more dramatic with the character Audrey like coming close to finding out who her mom is and everything, it's when I actually really like this movie a lot. I don't get me wrong, I love all four of these characters and how they interact and bounce off one another. I think all four of them have great chemistry. I think the set the big like parts of the movie, like the train scene where they all get like they all get caught with drugs on them and everything, is hilarious. I think the basketball player scene is really damn funny too.
Baron Davis,
yeah. All that stuff is great. But the second half of this movie, where they are trying to find Audrey's birth mother, and where that eventually goes and leads to, I think is what saves this movie from being something like Why Him or any of those like other gross out comedies from like 2013 to 2017, 2018 that came out. Why Him was just the first one that came to my mind because I remember I was pissed off leaving that movie.
Throwback. Throwback.
For real. This
back when James Franco was in movies.
Yeah, exactly. Back when James Franco was in movies. Isn't that a sight to see? Because, here's another one. The Night Before. I actually think that one's okay. It's the Seth Rogen Christmas movie with Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Anthony Mackie. That one's all right. But, like, again, when they try to bring the heart of the movie back around, it just doesn't stick the landing because while they're trying to do that, they're telling dick jokes, they're smoking weed, they're throwing up, they're doing all this. And Joyride does that for the first hour, don't get me wrong. So if you're not into that kind of humor, you probably wouldn't like the first hour of this. But the second hour of it, it pulls back on that stuff. It still happens, but it does focus on these characters. And I think that's what the saving thing is for Joyride. And what makes it better, like Steve was saying, than Bridesmaids. Because Bridesmaids is just like, you have the two main characters, and you have all these bridesmaids that are just there to serve gross out humor. And then when you get to the second half of Bridesmaids, it gets a bit redundant, and like, you could kind of tell what's going from here. With Joyride, at least, it's like, it felt a lot more refreshing to see like these two friends try to bond over this moment together, and her realizing like, who she is and everything, Audrey that is. That to me was the saving grace of this movie, and it actually made it a lot better than what I thought initially it was.
What I love about this movie to its core, and I mentioned this in my interview with Sherry, is that this is a movie that has to juggle four characters, and I feel like all of them get adequately developed. All of them have their own definitive introduction to the story, their purpose for being on the trip, and all four of them feel unique. You have Ashley Parks, Audrey, very straight-laced, but also has a wild side that's revealed in that one particular montage that's very funny. You have Sherry Cola's Lolo, who's like a loose cannon, who's very messy, means well, but is very messy, trying to get her erotic art off the ground. You have Stephanie Shu's character, who is a famous Chinese actress, former college roommate of Audrey's as well, who is like trying to be who she isn't in order to impress her fiance. And then you have Deadeye, Sabrina Wu, who's a fucking knockout in this thing. A fucking scene stealer in this thing. Tip of the cap to Sabrina Wu. Lolo's eccentric cousin in the movie, major K-pop stan, and you just never know what she's gonna say.
No.
And that's the thing about her that is so funny. And there's another version, there's a crappy asylum version of this movie, if you will, that writes her character so obnoxiously and so forcefully and like a byproduct of the worst tendencies of Twitter. And that's not her. She's so lovable. She's so innocent in this thing. And
she was the one, like, when her like resolution happened, I went, "Aw, like I'm actually like really happy for her out of everybody the most." Like,
I mean, if you need to know nothing else, and again, this isn't ruining anything, but the one dime montage in this thing, because of how funny it is and how well edited it is the scene when they the four girls wind up in the hotel with the traveling Chinese basketball team on Baron Davis is on.
Yeah.
And the whole joke is Lolo's been DMing Baron Davis the whole time and trying to hook up with him. So they end up in this hotel with this Chinese basketball team. And it's a montage, probably about 5+ minutes, that is like all 4 of the girls' exploits.
Yeah.
You've got like Audrey eyeing 2 guys. That's all I'm going to say. Because I'm a gentleman. There is Lolo. There is Sherry Colo's Lolo, who's trying to hook up with Baron Davis. There is Deadeye. There's Deadeye who, like, well, let me get to that. And there's Kat, who is trying not cheat on her fiance. And it's funnier than it appears.
Yeah.
And then you have Deadeye, who just wants to fucking dance.
Who just wants to dance to
like,
BTS.
it's adorable, and it's funny as hell, man. And that's the thing that I love about this movie is that Adele Lim, the director of it, and then you have Cherry Shiva-Prava Dumrog, who you'll recognize as that long name during the opening Family Guy credits.
Yes.
Cherry Shiva-Prava Dumrog and Teresa Sao. They're the writers of the movie. Again, they're both Family Guy writers. What they do is they not only like really kind of, subvert sort of expectations of Asians, specifically Asian females, and how Asian females traditionally act in movies. What they do, I think, is so sly in how they put these 4 women in these transgressive, filthy, unsavory situations, and then they all react to those situations based on their personalities.
Yeah.
And their personalities are so well developed that there's not an unlikable one of the 4. Like they all react to these situations, like the subway car or like the train car with a drug dealer. They all react in ways you predict them to, or you would expect them to react, and it's hilarious. Yeah, it really is.
That's my favorite thing about this movie too. Is like I was saying, these characters are like you actually care about them and everything. But Steve hits it home right there. None of them got annoying, which to me is an impressive feat to do with any road trip comedy. Because road trip comedies, they are the loudest comedies. Because they're gonna either have drugs, sex, shootouts somehow, anything like that. Like all 3. And we reviewed comedies from Netflix early on in the Sleepless reboot during the pandemic that are like road trip buddy comedies, and I fucking hated those movies. I used to get so angry when we reviewed them. So to actually see something done right, and it's still raunchy, it's still gross out humor, but it does it the best way possible. Made me actually really happy. I was like, thank God. Like, it's like we actually got a comedy that did this right. It didn't do it perfect or amazing, but it did it right, and I'm so happy for that.
Yeah, there's so much to love with this thing that I think is really a testament to just strong writing in general.
Yeah.
You just have a litany of very talented women on this thing that are just great with the beats of the movie too. And then to your earlier point, it's taken me this long to really kind of bring it up and address it, but it's true. You talked about how you like this movie quite a bit because the way the writers and Adele Lim, the director, who also worked on Crazy Rich Asians,
that's
she
another
worked
comedy
on
I actually really enjoy too. That caught me off
and
guard.
Raya and the Last Dragon. Adele Lim really, when it comes time for the expected emotional beats of this thing, it's well handled.
Yeah,
it really is. It's very well handled. And it kind of blindsides you. Now, I'm not going to lie. Even as somebody who, like, I've been told by readers and friends alike over the last, 14 years that I'm a more emotional moviegoer than a lot of people. And that I get the waterworks going more than most. Like, I didn't cry. But there's some real strong emotional resonance here.
There is.
That I think that anybody who struggles with identity, or particularly like adoptee identity. That's a term I actually learned after writing the review for for this movie, looking more into what other people said. Minorities brought into a whole new walk of life, which is a big part of the opening scene of this thing.
Yeah.
I think that there is a really good emotional payoff in this thing. And I think Ashley Park handles it valiantly. I think that she sells the emotion of the third act. And you know how I know this movie's great too, or at least why I feel like this movie's great, is because in every road trip comedy, I love what you said earlier about how they're some of the loudest movies, and they really are loudest comedies. You know how I knew this movie really won me over was during the predictable fight / go their separate ways, bit, when there's inevitably, the fraction, and then they all come together and they bitch and they're mad at each other and everything. Like, I felt it.
Yeah.
I was sad that I was like genuinely sad. And then there's poor Deadeye. And then there's poor Deadeye who's just like crushed. Like,
you know what I liked about that? And this is a totally random movie to remember here, but when I was watching it in theaters, it just popped into my mind. I said, see, those are real friends. When they're mad at you, they'll still do this shit. They still like found a way to help. Like, even though they went their separate ways, they still were like, but our main friend that we are concerned about, we should probably do this for her because it's what's best. That to me felt real. That to me, because the movie that popped in my head was Love, Simon, when Simon comes out as gay and all three of his closest friends go, how could you do this to us and lie to us throughout all these years? We're your friends. Like, get the fuck out of here. If they were his real friend, are you shitting me?
I'm glad you brought that up because I almost forgot that. Because yes, you can't. I don't want to ruin it. We don't want to ruin it.
I don't want to ruin it either. But it was
there
so
is
nice to see.
After the fight scene in the what starts the third act when the four girls go their separate ways, there is a pivotal thing that happens in the movie that is preempted by Ashley Park's Audrey's friends, by Audrey's friends. After the fight.
Yeah.
And that is very, you know what, damn it, I wish I would have brought that up to Sherry when I talked to her. Because that's rare. That's rare and that's real.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we've all had fights and disagreements with our closest friends. But there's like that still part where it's like, I might not talk to you for a day, but I'm still looking out for you.
Yeah.
Like, or if we get in a fight, or I'm like, saw this job listing, take a look at it. You know what I mean? Like, you still want the best for your friends. That is a very good point.
Because like, they say how long they've all been friends together, and it's like, it wouldn't feel real if it's like, I understand like what ultimately causes them to like argue and everything is something major. I'm not going to downplay that. But if you've been friends that long, like, there's going to be at least a part of you that wants to at least look out for your friend, despite a fight happening. Like, you might be like, yeah, I'm not going to talk to them, or I don't really want to see them after this. But even for me, I wouldn't be able to sleep at night if I didn't at least do this for them. If I didn't at least do this and know that, like, okay, they at least got this in the end. I thought that was so well done.
Absolutely. I call those day zero friends. I call those day zero because of, like, before you really knew who you were, you have those people that have known you since, like, your awkward, like, preteen years or even maybe younger. Like, I call those the day zero, the foxhole friends. I always said there's day zero, there's foxhole friends. The friends, like, there's friends you call that you know are gonna have a good time. You're gonna have a good time with.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going out tonight on a Friday. You want to join? You know, there's friends that are gonna be good times. But then there's friends where it's like, yo, dude, I'm like, in my case too, I'm moving to Iowa at the end of the month. Would you be willing to help me? I'll pay you in food. and those are your foxhole friends that'll get their hands dirty for you.
That's literally what I did every time I went to our college that we went to together. Anytime I had to go move back into the dorm, I had friends come out and I paid them in Nando's.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, those are the friends you got to keep close to you, man. They got your back like a chiropractor. There is a lot to talk about with the SAG-AFTRA strike. We'll probably get into it here shortly. So, I mean, maybe commence final thoughts on Joyride here.
Yeah, I don't know where the hell our Zoom sponsored intermission is at, but yeah.
That's what I was just going to ask. It feels like we really should be taking that here.
It really does. But... I'm like, I definitely started this. It should be popping up soon. But yeah, we can get into our final thoughts. That was weird.
You go first. You go first.
Okay. For me, this, like, Oh, there it is.
Shit, we summoned it.
He's like, oh shit, I'm late. For me, June, as in terms of movies, now I haven't seen everything just yet. I've been catching up, like I said last week. I caught up with Elemental and The Blackening and No Hard Feelings. But June for me was a bit of a letdown blockbuster wise, but comedy wise, The Blackening and No Hard Feelings, I had a great time at the theater with. And Joyride, even though it's technically July, was another great one to add on to those three other comedies. We haven't had comedies really come to theaters often, and it's great to see that we had three back-to-back movies, all comedies, all really their own thing too. Like I mentioned this last week, Blackening's a spoof. No Hard Feelings feels like it's Judd Apatow-esque, more of that dramedy type of stuff. And then Joyride is that raunchy comedy stuff that we loved from like The Hangover in 2009 or even Bridesmaids in 2011. So it was great to see all three of these be in theaters and be successful for the most part, critically and even audience-wise for the people that did go see them. I had a great time watching the movie. I went to go see this right after work on a Friday, I think. And I absolutely I saw it on a Tuesday. Sorry, I saw it on a Tuesday after work and it really brightened up my day. I had a great time. I was laughing my ass off. One of my favorite jokes in the movie is delivered by Sherry Cola. It's just like she's talking like they're trying to get drugs out of their assholes and everything. I mean, this is a raunchy comedy after all. And she's just like, yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny, kind of like watching a little child fall down a sewer grate funny. It's just like, it's such a weird thing to say. And just the way she delivered it and the context of that scene, it made me laugh my ass off. And it was like right there in that moment, I was like, you know what? With all three of these comedies, I had a moment like that, and it felt nice to laugh again in the theater. It's not, like I said, it's not my favorite comedy of the year. It probably is No Hard Feelings, but I don't want to downplay this movie. All right, like, you know, it already got downplayed by people not going to see it. Definitely rent it on home video. Check it out. Get a good laugh in. It is an enthusiastic 3 out of 4 stars from me.
I'll piggyback off a lot of what you just said, kind of make it quick here, though, too. Yeah, love this movie. Think it's just a tremendous ensemble, top to bottom. I think all 4 of these women, from Ashley Park to Sherry Cola to Stephanie Hsu, Oscar nominee Stephanie Hsu from Everything Everywhere All at Once, and the lovely, lovely Sabrina Wu in this thing. I think they all do a tremendous job, and it just kind of like goes backwards, though. The 4 leads are great. They bring their own energy and charisma to it and their own comic delivery. They are aided by good writing from Cherry Chiva Pravadumrog and Teresa Sao. And they have Adele Lim, who takes them on foot, on train, in club settings and big hotel settings and everything. Just like one setting after another to really amplify all the comic effect in this movie, too. And you also have the one other actress I'll mention too. It maybe not towards the overall overarching point, but just the one other actress I want to name too is Meredith Hagner, who plays the drug dealer on the train for a very brief scene. I thought Hagner was terrific. I thought that whole train scene was
that train scene is probably my favorite scene in the movie too.
I would say second probably to the hotel montage. I would say the train scene is just uproariously funny. It's visually funny. It's edited well. This is just a comedy that fires on all cylinders, and it's been a really, really long time since we got a movie that was this funny, this brash, this raunchy, and this just unapologetically willing to be itself. I loved it. 3.5 out of 4 stars. If the year ended tomorrow, I'd make my top 10, truthfully. I loved it that much. It would make my top 10 if the year ended tomorrow.
Ready to go to intermission?
I think so.
All right, we'll be
I think so. I was going to say, we're coming back now with SAG-AFTRA, the Screen Actors Guild, American Federation of Television and Radio Artists. Shout out to the latter, too, especially. SAG-AFTRA strike going on right now, as if the Writers Guild Association strike wasn't pivotal, wasn't huge, wasn't crippling. This right now sends Hollywood into an all-out tailspin. And it's been going on 5 days now. and I don't think it's anywhere close to getting resolved.
No.
We are going to break that down. The SAG-AFTRA strike coming up after the intermission right here. Back in about 60 to 90 seconds. Don't go anywhere. This is Sleepless with Steve. Live. Chug water like it's my job too, so. Back and better than ever, Sleepless with Steve, live on YouTube on this Wednesday evening. No tornadic activity. We're going live to Joe Viso right now in beautiful suburban Illinois, the western suburbs of Chicago. Joe, you got a window near you. I know that much. How's the weather looking out there?
Believe it or not, it is actually getting more gray. And I swear to God, if a thunderstorm comes out of nowhere, I'm going to be pissed.
You know what's funny is that next week, it's County Fair week out here. The Dubuque County Fair is next week, so I'm going to be out there quite a bit next week, just hanging out, meeting people, whatever. And it has been a pleasantly tolerable summer out here for the most part. It's been in the mid, sometimes upper 80s, low 80s. Like concerts I was at this week was in like the mid 70s, so it's been really nice. You know what I mean? Like what you expect. Well, next week it's the fair. And I looked, I'm going to be there Tuesday and Thursday and maybe TBD Friday. I was looking Tuesday, the first day of the fair, 94. It's going to be 94 out there. And then it's going to be like possibly like 97 later in the week. So it's going to be hotter than hell. We haven't had, knock on wood, we haven't had any major storms out here really this summer. So that's been nice.
That's good.
Had a couple like monsoon downpours, but no like severe weather. Very, very limited in that capacity. Glad you're good though, and glad we could carry on the show as well.
Yeah, for real. I'm glad we actually got back around to reviewing Joyride. I'm glad I didn't have to watch Bird Box, which I probably will watch it eventually. Because
no,
here's the thing, I got to do it because my war stuff list is gonna be exactly what it was like last year, which was like. All right, I mean, Beast, you're not a bad movie, but, like, you're kind of, like, there for number 10 right now, which is what happened with my top 10, where it was like, all right, I need to get, like, a few turds in there, honestly. I've been seeing too many decent, good, great movies this year.
It's very true. Like I was looking at my worst list too this week, and like only like 2 movies really pissed me off this year.
Yeah.
With how like bad they were. Like 2 or 3, I would
Yeah.
say, like really pissed me off. I'm hoping Pure Flicks, Pinnacle Peak, excuse me. Pinnacle Peak's got something up their sleeve. For the back half of the year though, or else it's going to be a very underwhelming worst list, quite frankly.
Honestly, yeah,
But
because I look at it, it's like, oh man, like, I don't have much to choose from. But with this strike going on next year, we're going to get some stuff that's probably going to be affected by this strike that might make my worst stuff list because of it.
That's what we in this industry call a segue, and a good segue. Because on July 14th, SAG-AFTRA officially went on strike over ongoing labor disputes with the AMPTP. A lot of alphabet soup going on, and I'm somebody who gets really sickened by acronyms. So let me say, when we say SAG or SAG-AFTRA, that stands for the Screen Actors Guild, American Federation of Television and Radio Artists. When we say AMPTP, it is the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers. So, which is often shortened to Hollywood Executives. That's often what it's shortened to. And then you have the WGA, the Writers Guild Association, which is on strike with the same organization as well over ongoing labor disputes. So, I'll tell you right now, and it's probably terrible to equate these two, but I guess with any major happening in the world, whether it is a mass shooting, whether it is a strike of this nature, whether it's the Titan submersible imploding, I always wait about a day and then I check Wikipedia. Because Wikipedia distills things down. Its citation of sources has gotten a lot better in these last couple of weeks. So I want to credit Wikipedia kind of for breaking this down. I've read several articles, but if you're looking for a good distillation of this, the article is 2023 SAG-AFTRA strike. And it's a very good article because it talks about what caused the strike and what the goals of the strike are. And this is where we really miss Dominic, because Dom does an amazing job of sort of contextualizing a lot of this. And we wouldn't have even gotten to review Joyride tonight if he was on the show. We would have had a PowerPoint presentation. He would have had a laser pointer out. It would have been, bedlam.
It would have been Sleepless
bedlam.
After Dark. We wouldn't even be here. Dom would still just be talking.
I'd be sleeping on that couch right now.
Hey, we actually be sleeping.
We'd actually be sleeping. I'd actually be getting some sleep for a change. But the SAG-AFTRA strike is really about the crux of this is a new labor agreement, kind of like how sports leagues come up with a CBA or a collective bargaining agreement. Yeah. It really is about a labor agreement between the Screen Actors Guild and the motion picture and television producers. And right now, there are two things that are truly holding this thing up. And just like in the Writers Guild strike, we haven't really brought that up in about a month or so on the show, the Writers Guild strike. And it's because there's really no developments with it. This thing is going to... The writer's strike at this current moment in time is going on 2 months, 2 weeks, and 3 days. And it's rivaling now. It's probably going to surpass the 2007-08 writer's strike. Now, with the SAG strike, it really comes down to two things, and they're very similar to the writer's strike. It is streaming residuals. That is one of the biggest issues in this agreement or this dispute between the actors and the Hollywood executives is the streaming residuals. No longer is, I don't want to say relevant, but streaming television, syndicated television rather, isn't what it used to be with all the cord cutting that's been taking place. It's a lot of streaming. You want to watch Friends, you're probably not going to scroll through live TV to find it.
Yeah.
You're probably going to find it, what is it, on Netflix, Friends?
I can't even keep up with it anymore. I don't know.
I know, right? I tell me about it. But if you want to watch a specific TV show, especially a show that was on in the 90s, you're probably not looking on live TV. You're probably looking on streaming.
Even a show recently, too, that recently aired.
Yeah, Yellowstone.
Yeah.
That's a perfect example.
Even ABC's like next day on Hulu and everything.
So that's the difficulty here, is that the actors are trying to come to an agreement with what streaming residuals look like, what kind of money they are going to be paid going forward for shows that continue to be wildly successful on streaming services. Now, the other element of this thing, which I think makes anybody, and myself too, I'd be lying if I said I've talked about it on this show. I'd be lying if I said it doesn't make me very, very nervous for my own well-being. And I think anybody who works in a creative industry feels this way. It is studios' usage and creative liberations with artificial intelligence, AI. The studios have argued in these agreements or in these contract negotiations that they should be able for extras. Now, not your Tom Cruises, not your Nicole Kidmans, your Sandra Bullocks, your main actors. I'm talking like your extras, your background people, that they should have the permission to do a body scan in a way, like an artificial intelligence scan of actors' faces to generate performances digitally.
Yeah.
They use you once, they can use you forever.
Yeah.
And I mean, shit, that's a slippery slope for like, what if that extra dies? Can you still use them? It is a serious can of worms here. And I, like I just said, it makes somebody like me who works in a creative field like radio, it makes me very nervous because of the fact that, and it sounds shortchanging in a way to the people that it could have affected, but it really isn't. For the longest time, we talked about this with the Writers Guild strike, who are concerned about the use of artificial intelligence when it comes to the writing aspect of movies and shows. We talked about this. It's like for years, and back me up on this, Joe, if you're familiar, if you remember this. For years, it was always thought that robotics and the use of artificial intelligence was going to permeate the service industry.
Yeah.
It was going to come in and infiltrate like fast food jobs.
Yep.
And automate, like your burger at McDonald's would be made by robots.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Or even the cashiers all going to become automated. You just load your items on the thing. I mean, hell, Amazon already did that with their store, where you could just literally put stuff in the cart and it'll scan it as it's going in. And when you walk out of the store, that's when you check out.
Those Amazon Fresh Markets, yeah.
Yeah.
They've implemented that. And so for the longest time, it was like the service industry jobs. And then there was that funny argument where people would be like, well, the jobs aren't going to go away. They're going to need somebody to fix those machines. Yeah, because the average person who works the register at McDonald's also knows how to
has an engineering degree.
Exactly. That used to drive me. I remember getting in an argument with a family friend, drove me fucking nuts years ago. But it used to be thought of like AI was going to really automate the service industry.
Yeah.
Well, now it's coming with the introduction of ChatGPT, which I think at the end of the day is going to be, it has already become like this seismic moment in history, in global history, where it's this new technology and it has the ability to affect so many different industries. And now it's like the creative industry.
Yeah.
And now it's like the writers.
Arts.
It's the arts. Yeah. It's the entertainment industry.
And I'm not even, when I say arts, I'm not even referring to like movies, TVs, music, all that stuff. I'm even referring to arts as in just like, like you go get an associate's degree in arts, you get a bachelor degree in arts for a marketing position, for anything that's related to the arts position. And now potentially AI can also replace that. It's like, how much more will AI be able to replace here? I mean, we're going to focus, of course, on the stuff in the entertainment industry because of what this show is, but just kind of giving a perspective on it, it's scary to think like, yeah, literally a lot of my friends that I went to college with, majority of them could probably be replaced by AI. And even to an extent, my position, I don't know if I could fully be replaced by an AI, but parts of my job can be. I'm usually in charge of press releases. I'm usually in charge of our social media posts. If my job tomorrow were to wake up and go, you know what? We're going to cut down on Joe's salary and we're going to make ChatGPT just do our press releases and all that stuff. Then it's like, well, then I just lost some responsibilities in my job and probably lost some pay as well.
100%. And that is that's a scary thing. I encourage people to go to this website. Don't click around too much. I don't want to give it too many views. But there's a website called newsgpt.ai.
Oh, God.
Newsgpt.ai. And it is news written by AI, written by ChatGPT. And I really hate to admit it. I've read a few articles on it. I just went to it for the first time in about a month, actually, to just see what they were doing. And like, this is entirely by AI. Meta releases Llama AI model to challenge proprietary offerings by OpenAI and Google. First edition Apple iPhone sells for over $190,000 at auction. Check your drawers, people, FYI. Former President Trump reveals target letter in criminal investigation. These are just headlines, but they're cogently written.
Yeah.
They're very well very well orchestrated.
Yeah.
Like, I don't blame actors for being worried. And this is the thing too that I've thought about for a lot of this strike, or at least the last week, is that, like, if these actors, like, livelihoods are a threat, and we think of these as like the elite, untouchable people in the world that make millions of dollars. Not every actor does. It's a good reminder. The ones you know about do. But if these actors aren't untouchable, and these studio executives are looking at how AI could be a cheaper, be a more cost efficient, and be a more sort of workable alternative, what does that say about your job?
Exactly.
Where you make far less than these people do.
If an actor can be replaced, if a writer can be replaced, if anybody on the set of a film can be replaced, and those are studio executives making those decisions, what's not to say the CEO of your corporation you work under make that call as well?
100%. I've talked kind of ad nauseum here. I actually had a little bit more to say than I thought I did, truthfully, about this strike. But we're on day 5 now. A lot of people are taking to the picket lines now. You're seeing strikes in obviously the 2 big coastal cities, New York, Los Angeles. You're seeing a lot. I've seen a lot of different picketing going on all across social media. I don't see a resolve in either of these strikes, whether it's the Writers Guild or the Screen Actors Guild, anytime soon. But I turn it over to you, Joe, for your thoughts, because I know you got some thoughts on this.
It's scarier more than ever now that the actors are now joining and the studio still has not budged. In fact, the biggest thing the studio has done since actors have joined was NBC Universal trimmed the trees where the protesters were under to stay shaded during their protests on the hottest week in LA. So that's the most thing we've seen a studio executive do, was trim some trees to make sure those picket lines get a little bit too hot. But to go in further, man, I mean, who knows how much further this is going to go with other parts of the industry. Animators have been people who have been underserved and have been the talk a lot recently. Ever since, like, at the Oscars, they were made fun of. And you had people like Guillermo del Toro and Phil Lord and Chris Miller speak out and go, this industry is a lot of hard work and you guys keep making the butt of the joke, like, all the time. This is not just, like, made for kids. This is film. Animation is film. So you have all those people saying that and everything. And recently some stuff's been coming out about animators too, where Netflix has been doing this, and even some other streaming services too. But I know for sure Netflix is one where animators will animate 24 episodes of a show. But what Netflix will do is they'll take 12 of those episodes and make that one season. And they'll take the other 12 and make that season 2. Now, an animator just worked their ass off and animated one whole season. So they're getting paid for only one season. But what Netflix is doing is actually taking their work and splitting into 2 seasons. So rather than being paid for 2 seasons worth of animation, they just had to work all that overtime. Probably didn't get paid for it either. probably had to sleep at work, miss families and everything, all for it to be divided into 2 separate seasons and just have the voice actors come in later in the year to voice those scenes and everything. It's happened with the show Cuphead. It's happened with a few other animated shows on Netflix. The Sonic show that recently has been premiering on Netflix, which just started its 2nd season, was actually revealed that, yeah, that whole 2nd season was done at the same time the 1st season was, and it was all supposed to be one storyline. It's crazy to think, like, you know, studios have been taking advantage of this stuff for as long as probably streaming has been around. And I'm just talking on the streaming side of things. Because really think about it. I mean, like, how long have you been streaming Netflix at home? I've been doing it since Xbox 360 was a thing. Back on Xbox 360, for those of you who have been, like, using it since then, where your Xbox avatar could sit in a theater with other Xbox avatars and watch the same thing with your friends. That's how long I've been streaming stuff on Netflix, when Netflix was cool with you streaming stuff with each other, compared to now, where it's like you share a password and you're fucked. It's so you really got to think back to, like, wow, like residuals, all that stuff, and just probably the abuse that, like, you know, animators, writers have been dealing with. Because we talked about it with writers when this all started, is that they used to get paid a lot of money to write 24 episodes a season, because that was just the standard on TV. But now the standard on streaming is usually 10 to 12 episodes a season, and they're getting paid, like, significantly less. And some writers even are people who are writing literally 24 episodes for a Netflix show. And, like, the same thing with animators. It's divided into 2 seasons, so they're not getting paid fairly. Residuals is another big thing, especially with SAG-AFTRA. Mandy Moore, who is from the show This Is Us, one of ABC's biggest shows they've had in the longest time, got critical praise, I think even broke viewing records. Mandy Moore revealed that she only receives 81 cents for her paychecks in terms of residuals when This Is Us was streamed on Hulu the day after. So all that work and everything that she did as an actress and everything, and she's not a big name. She ain't no Tom Cruise. This ain't no Meryl Streep. She's only getting paid pennies for her work. And I get sick and tired of people being like, they should be grateful for the opportunity they have. It's still a fucking job at the end of the day. What don't you get about that? It's still them trying to make a living. They have to earn a certain threshold too to get health insurance, medical insurance, all that stuff as an actor. It's not like you go and you're like, oh, okay, I do this gig and I have Blue Cross Blue Shield for the next 6 months. No, that's not how that works in the industry. So, you know, this is still their work. This is their livelihood. This is something they love to do. I hate seeing all those comments of people saying all that, because it's like, these are the same people that say, oh, you should love what you do for work. And these people do. But you think they make the same salary just because you see them on TV as fucking Tom Cruise and Dwayne Johnson. But they don't. They make significantly way less. In fact, the people that I talk about will probably hate for me to mention this website, but CNN has a good article about this. The average hourly wage for an actor is $27.73. That's basically not really like that's almost every other job I know out there that my friends went to college for. And these people do commercials, these people appear on TV shows, maybe in a few movies.
And factor that into Los Angeles cost of living,
exactly.
Hollywood cost of living.
Exactly that. For example, it mentions in the article, an actor who worked on a television show for 1 week was paid a minimum of $3,756. And, you know, that might be a lot to some people, but, like, again, in California, in New York, where, you know, some of these productions happen, where they're finding work for this kind of stuff, it's not really that much, honestly. It's really not.
And it's inconsistent work, too.
Yeah, it's inconsistent. You have long breaks. This isn't like your Monday through Friday. This is your, all right, I have work for the next 3 months, and then this production's over. And then I have to go, and I have to go find another gig. I have to go audition. I have to hope that someone takes me in. And who knows how long that might take. Is my agency going to drop me?
And why do you think there's the cliche of, like, and it's not really
waiting
a cliche,
tables?
It's true. Waiting tables.
Yeah.
Exactly. Between gigs. it's a gig economy.
It is.
It's a total gig economy. And I mean, even in our situation, not our personal situations, but I know a lot of people that work like 3 or 4 part-time jobs. You know what I mean? Or something like that.
I used to work 3 part-time jobs at one point in my life because I just had to make that money.
No, I know. I worked 2 at one point. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's challenging.
Today, when I finish school with what I'm doing as a career, I might even do like a small part-time position or just like contract work on the side, just because it's like I just need an extra source of income with how things are changing. I live in Illinois. I don't live in California and New York, and I got to do this. It just annoys me because it's like these people act like actors sit around all day. It's like no. They do their craft and they get to love it, but then they gotta hustle between the next gig. They really do. It's really sad to say. Like, like a lot of people.
And it's easy not to interrupt you. It's easy, I think, for people that live like in less populated areas, let's say like 100,000 minus.
Sure.
Like 100,000 or less people to see actor like broadly, because it's like, think of the actors that when you think of actors and movie stars. Mm-hmm. It's those that are always in front of your face, but it's not like it's not the smaller actors that are tougher to name because you don't know them by name. You know what I mean? Like things like that. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like for movie, like that guy actors or that girl actors or something like that, or even just actors in like an indie movie or something like that. Like I'm just like thinking off the top of my head, like, I don't know, Joe Swanberg, geez, probably
Bobby Cannavale.
Josh Peck. Bobby Cannavale, there you go. Cooper Rife.
Cooper Rife.
You know what I mean? Devin, I don't know why this name comes to mind, but Devin Werkheiser. Like, like these, like the like third tier, second tier guys. Yeah. Who maybe did not have a Disney movie to go off of or something like that, or a big production that really solidified them with generational wealth. There's a lot more of those people than you think.
There really
There's
is.
a lot more. There's a lot more. And I want to mention this too. Before we bleed too deep into OT, I thought it was interesting. There's already a Wikipedia page for the list of productions impacted by 2023, the SAG-AFTRA strike. And I'm just going to read you some of these. These are all movies that have been delayed now filming. These are movies that are not done yet, that are not filming due to the strike and won't film until a resolution has come between the executives and the actors. Some of these movies: Avatar 3, Beetlejuice 2, Juror Number 2, that's the new Clint Eastwood movie, Fantastic Four, Minecraft, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 2 is not done. It's not done yet.
Funny enough, Dead Reckoning, the villain of that movie, is an AI. So I just think it's funny that like that movie had a whole thing about AI taking over and everything, and now we have this going on with the actors.
A couple others: Twisters, the sequel to Twister, the 90s movie. Mortal Kombat 2. Shit, they're making another one of those.
Deadpool 3.
Gladiator 2. Gladiator 2's on this list.
Yeah.
Those are some of the movies. Wolves, which is the new John Watts movie. I'm actually looking forward to this one. This one's produced by Clooney and Brad Pitt. Ooh. That one for Apple TV. You smell Oscars. That one's delayed. Wicked, which, God bless Wicked's been trying to get made since like 2005.
Fucking Wicked and Fantastic Four have been like the two on there. I'm laughing about, because it's like, man, you guys are never gonna get off your feet, are you?
Wicked, no, I'm serious. Like Wicked, I think Wicked was in production during the last writer's strike.
Probably.
Like Wicked is a cursed movie adaptation. Like, I know it's supposed to come out next November. I doubt it. Remember we had that $100 bet that Avatar 3 gets delayed beyond next year? Remember that?
Yeah.
Well, the current release date's 2025. Now, granted, I did not foresee a writer's strike and an actor's strike. But it's also, I think it's also too, just like a lot of this too is like I think a lot of the shit we're in now as a country high gas prices, high grocery prices. If you want to do anything in this country anymore, just expect to pay like an exorbitant ass amount of money. If you want to buy a car, you want to buy a house. Remember, it used to be if a house was listed, not that I've ever bought a house, I just know people that have. Remember when it used to be when a house was listed at like $200,000? That was the price you would have liked to get for it. You listed it at 200 grand. It was like, yeah, I hope I get 150, 160. Now you got to bid over the asking price.
Yeah.
You got to have cash. You got to have money on hand right now. You got to have a higher deposit than the people you're competing with.
Yep.
My point being to bringing all this up is that like if there's anything with the COVID-19 pandemic, and I realize this is a generalization, but if there's anything that's like come out of the COVID-19 pandemic is that like everything is fucking hard nowadays. Everything is hard. Like finances, ordering parts, getting a car, everything nowadays is hard. Yeah. Getting a raise is hard. Like the one thing I feel like is not hard nowadays is I feel like still everywhere is hiring. Like at least like service jobs. You know what I mean? I feel like that's the one thing nowadays that like you could pretty much walk into a restaurant nowadays and possibly be given a part-time job, you know, if you're decent. But everything else nowadays is difficult as shit. And I empathize with like everybody because all my friends across all different industries, there's all these different plights 3 years after COVID.
It's crazy. I mean, shit, like the cost of my gas, like just to put gas in my tank, is like the cost of like what I would spend on a video game. Like it's insane. It's like it's getting up there in price. So I can only imagine what it's like to be on strike for as long as the writers have been, at least, and like not getting any paycheck or anything. It's like, holy shit, dude, I can't imagine that right now.
Definitely wanted to bring this up though. I mean, it's hard to ignore. Did you have a final thought on this?
The last thing I just wanted to say is just like Bob Iger made a few comments over the week. And as somebody who was like, okay, cool, Bob Iger's coming back, and he's like saying like some of the stuff that I think Disney should be doing, which is like giving back the theme parks an actual park to attend to, and maybe not putting so much goddamn content on Disney Plus all at once, and maybe focus on the quality of it. And it's like, yeah, we'll see how that goes. But then he comes out here and he says like, oh, the striking actors and writer demands are just not realistic, and the man makes 40 times as much as the lowest paid person in a cast or crew. 40 times as much. And dude, how is it unrealistic when you're making that much more than the lowest person in the cast or crew? Like how? 40 times. That's insane. I'm sorry. That is just crazy.
Yeah. No, it's well said. I mean, like I said, nowadays, and I encourage this, I really do. Anytime you mention like any of these studio executives, like the man who runs Paramount, the man who runs Warner Brothers Discovery, David Zaslav, it should be their like annual salary. It should be David Zaslav, $250 million.
Bob Iger, $31 million a year.
That's what I'm saying. Like, you know, there is and I called it out I mentioned it last year, like movies like Triangle of Sadness and The Menu, that like clearly have this resentment, this justified resentment towards like the wealthy, privileged Burgess class.
Yeah.
It's absolutely like, I feel like the more I see those movies, I'm like, this is absolutely justified. Like, this is absolutely justified in a sick way.
Hey man, there's a reason why fucking Parasite won Best Picture.
And I keep saying that was the last good thing to happen in the world before COVID. That was the last good thing before COVID. It happened like a month.
Yeah.
Parasite winning Best Picture. And look at us now. That's our show tonight. What a great show it was after a bounce back show from all the tornadic activity that took place in Joe's region last week. We'll be back next week. We're tackling Barbie. I feel like I've been waiting for this movie for 2+ years, and it's finally here tomorrow. I cannot wait to see this thing. Greta Gerwig's Barbie is coming out, and we are going to have a lot of thoughts. Dom's at it tonight with a few friends of ours, so shout out to him.
He's going to the early access screening.
Yes, he is. Shout out to him. And we're going to be talking Barbie or next Wednesday on the show. Looking forward to it. Following week will be Oppenheimer then. We will hit both. We won't do a Barbenheimer show. That would be fun. But these guys got lives to do, and I don't want them to strike. I'm not paying them, and I don't want them to go on strike now. I don't want there to be – we got the WGA strike, the SAG-AFTRA strike. I don't want there to be an SWS strike at any time soon. So I'm going to leave it at that. But – we're back next week, the three of us, back for the first time in a long time together on the show. After over a month and a half, maybe almost 2 months, me, Joe, and Dom all back together to review Barbie. And I can't think of a better movie to come back to. So I'm excited for that very much. That'll be next week.
Even the double lineup we have, both Barbie and Oppenheimer. All three of us back to do those two movies. Like, that's awesome.
I like what Cillian Murphy said to the star Oppenheimer. I like what he said. Cillian Murphy was like, I want people to see both these movies opening weekend. I want them to both make a ton of money because that's the win for the cinema. I completely agree.
I'll
be seeing both.
I'll
be seeing both.
Sorry, I keep interrupting you.
You're fine.
I love seeing 40,000 tickets have been sold for both Oppenheimer and Barbie. I love seeing. Like, originally I was like, maybe I'll go see Oppenheimer on Thursday night. Sold out. Can't go see it. IMAX screening. Sold out. I'm loving seeing that because it's like,
that's
okay,
awesome.
We need something like this to happen, at least for the box office of this year. We desperately need it.
I totally agree. And I've been a Greta Gerwig fan since about 2012. Too. I'm a Greta Gerwig hipster. I always said the first movie she directed was not Lady Bird. It was Nights and Weekends. Look it up. I've been a Greta Gerwig fan for years. So to see her win big like this too, it's like, God damn, I can't wait for this thing. And Oppenheimer too. Definitely looks like the mood movie of the year, to say the least. We'll be back next week. Me, Dom, and Joe reviewing Barbie. Following week, Oppenheimer. This is Sleepless with Steve. We come to you live and in living color every Wednesday evening, 6:30 Central Time. For Joe Viso, Dominic Guanzon in spirit, and yours truly, this has been Sleepless with Steve.